Bro, it pissed me off reading that. That is something I didn't even know about before I started looking stuff up for this video. And can you imagine how disheartening that must be? Hello, my amazing crew members, newcomers, but most importantly, OGs. Welcome to another yapping session. I'm your host, Lucy, aka Lucifer, and I'm a former obese girl turned bodybuilder. In this video, I want to talk a bit about the rather noticeable discrepancies between how male and female bodybuilders get treated in the sport. At times, the vibe really hasn't been the most welcoming for the big girls, and I hope that is something that can change. Before we get into it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of me and join our prestigious crew. We would be very lucky to have you on board. But without any further ado, let me tell you how via odd sexism, bodybuilding has been trying to push women out and created some weird double standards, long before I ever even joined the lifestyle. Ah yes, modern bodybuilding, the pursuit of growing your meat suit to ever-increasing ridiculous proportions. An endeavor that I think anyone who grew up with Dragon Ball or He-Man can emphasize with at least a little bit. It's a goal that has been enjoyed by men and women ever since women officially got in on the fun in the 1970s. The first official female bodybuilding competition was held in Canton, Ohio in November 1977, where the women were told that they would be judged like men, with emphasis on muscular density, full muscle bellies, clear muscle separation, symmetry between the upper and lower body, and physique presentation. That being said, women were rather small back then by today's standards, but then again, you can also say the same for the men. The sport and the people participating in it certainly have gotten a lot bigger over the years. In the 80s, we got our very first Miss Olympia in the form of Rachel McLish. The competitors back then had been hand-picked. By what criterion, you might ask? It wasn't by how big they were necessarily. They were picked by how well they could represent a fitness role model for the average American woman. Even then, there seems to have been some weird double standard. The words average and bodybuilding don't really fit well together in my mind. I seriously doubt any Mr. Olympia was ever chosen based on how relatable and inspiring they might be to the average American man. I think it never would have crossed anyone's mind to do something like that for the men. But I guess it would have been very much expected, especially in the beginning, since back then, gender stereotypes were a lot stronger and much wider spread. As time went on, it seemed as this would be an issue that could fix itself, as women began to grow themselves bigger and bigger as well. It's just fair that when men chase extreme size to be the biggest and best and get scored well for it by the judges, women should be able to do the same and be rewarded in the same way on stage. Or so one would think. In the year I was born, in 1992, the IFBB made an attempt to feminize the sport. At the Miss International competition, a woman who was 170 centimeters tall and weighed only 59 kilos was awarded the first prize. Meanwhile, another competitor was exactly the same height, but weighed in at 73 kilos. A lot of people at the time felt that the judges had scored the physiques by how marketable they found them, rather than by how muscular, lean, and symmetrical they were. In fact, the crowd's reaction was extremely vocal and extremely negative. So much so that Arnold himself had to step on stage and did his best to calm people down. It is crazy to me that in the sport that is bodybuilding, there has been such a prejudice against women having large amounts of muscle. Like, isn't that the whole point? Am I insane, or is bodybuilding not all about building large amounts of muscle? It's bizarre. In the year 2000, a letter was sent to women competing at the Olympia that stated, and I quote, "Symmetry, presentations, separations, and muscularity, but not to the extreme." End quote. Again, isn't the whole point of bodybuilding to be exactly that, to be extreme? I also think this extremely muscular woman not being marketable is a big cope. Because when I look at extremely muscular women who have millions of followers, you can't tell me that's not marketable. That's ticket sales right there. In 2004, a memo was being issued to all female IFBB pros, introducing the 20% rule. I'm gonna quote exactly what it says, and it's absolutely wild. Keep in mind, we're talking about bodybuilders here, right? For aesthetic and health reasons, the IFBB professional division requires that female athletes in bodybuilding, fitness, and figure decrease the amount of muscularity by a factor of 20. This request for a 20% decrease in the amount of muscularity applies to those female athletes whose physiques require the decrease regardless of whether they compete in bodybuilding, fitness, or figure. All professional judges have been advised of the proper criteria for assessing female physiques. You have to be kidding me. Bro, it pissed me off reading that. That is something I didn't even know about before I started looking stuff up for this video. And can you imagine how disheartening that must be? You've spent decades crafting yourself into female Broly, absolute goals by the way, and then they tell you they don't want that. In professional bodybuilding. What? Like, I can't. Does bodybuilding genuinely not mean what I think it does? And this whole health concerns thing. Who do they think they're fooling? This has absolutely nothing to do with health concerns, I promise you. My guys, steroids do not discriminate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they wreck men's organs just the same as they do women's. I mean, yes, there are differences, obviously, especially if we're talking about the gendered organs, but I'm talking about the mandatory ones here: heart, kidneys, liver, etc. Whatever your gender is, blasting tons of gear will put those organs under extreme stress. That isn't a woman's issue. I'd argue that men are actually more at risk than women, because usually they take much higher doses of androgens and growth hormones. We see a lot more men being unalived because of that sort of thing. Just saying. If they are so concerned about people's health, maybe they ask the men to get 20% smaller too. Oh, they didn't do that? Well, I see how it is. I guess they just really didn't want to say the quiet part out loud, huh? When I was looking into this, I came across one study that claimed that women are actually at a higher risk. But the study itself said that its data is maybe not super reliable, so make of that what you will. I think I'm gonna just link it in the description if you're interested in that. What was interesting about that one was that supposedly 13% of female bodybuilders were unalived due to self-deletion or being unalived by a third party, which is 4 times higher than it is for the men. But again, I don't know how trustworthy that data actually is. Maybe if you're a female bodybuilder, you're just extra likely to be deleted, I guess. The Arnold Classic is one of the biggest and most prestigious bodybuilding events to compete at. Unless you're a women's bodybuilding or a women's physique athlete, because those categories have been removed from the event, while the prize money for the men competing there has been increased. It's ridiculous that we are being pushed out and denied the same opportunities the men get, just because some organizers don't think female bodybuilders are appealing to them personally. Because that's the only real reason I can think of here. If it was really about health, then surely the bigger men's division would have been removed from the event as well. Imagine falling in love with a sport, just to find that even at the highest level, the sport itself kinda discriminates against you even being there. It simply is not fair. Forging yourself into a beast, into an absolute unit, should be unisex. Women shouldn't be forced to not be extreme when we very well want to be. If I want to turn myself into an absolute unit, then a bodybuilding show should be the place to do that, right? Imagine if they went up to Dorian Yates in his prime and told him that he is too big and too extreme and he should tone it down. He probably would have laughed you out of the room. And yet, that is what the women at the top of the sport are apparently supposed to put up with. Just last year, women's bodybuilding was removed from the Tampa Pro. One more show dropping the big girls. One more show that celebrates big and freaky bodies, just as long as they're not female. You cannot tell me that that is not a double standard. It really is saddening to see. Bodybuilding loves absurd amounts of muscle. Only on men though. Women? Nah, this is a boys' club. Like bruh, we have muscles too, and don't act like any of the bigger men's categories are achievable naturally. We're playing the same game here. Regardless of gender, we all set out to build something that goes against nature. God didn't intentionally build any of us to grow into one of those cows. That is just a beautiful use of free will, and I think that should be valid regardless of what parts you spawned in with. I love bodybuilding with all my heart, and I hope that one day all this can change. That one day maybe I can step on stage at the Arnold. Because I would love to. It looks like a lit event. But as things are now, seemingly I am not welcome there. But what do you think? Is this a double standard that should be done away with? Or is and should bodybuilding be a boys' club and us girls should count ourselves lucky that we get any shows? Would you have the guts to tell prime Dorian Yates to his face that he needs to tone it down? Let me know in the comments below. With that, I shall conclude another rambling session. As always, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. My muscles aren't the only thing I'm trying to grow. I'm also trying to build up the coolest and most badass crew in all of YouTube, and I would love to have you on board for it. But for now, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye! One more thing actually. I had a video that I forgot to put at the end of a previous video where I briefly mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! Because someone asked for my Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck and I was showing some cards, and I'm gonna edit that at the end of this video now. So yeah, have a look at my cards. In my video about why gamers make better bodybuilders, someone asked to see my Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards since I showed off my Magic cards at the end. So since I brought up Yu-Gi-Oh! Briefly in this video, I think that's a good enough of an excuse to show you some of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. So one thing I played a lot and for a long time are Harpies. So I know, very, very girly. But yeah, I played this. This was actually a meta way back, and I was so happy when they became a meta because I really wanted to make them playable. And you play these with Big Eye, if someone remembers. And this is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Card of all time. I hope it's in, you can actually see it. It's Harpy Channeler. And I actually cosplayed her as well. I'll put some videos on screen as well. Some pictures of it on screen as well. Although I think there are videos as well. I'll put some pictures, whatever. So yeah, this is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. And I mean, yeah, got some good stuff. I got some proxies here as well because I don't know what happened to the actual cards. So there's just some printouts in there as well. But yeah, some Harpies here. This was one of the key cards you played this with. Yeah, I like me some Yu-Gi-Oh! Not be extreme when regardless of what. Before we get into it, let me tell you how we are. I'm gonna quote exactly what it says, and this is absolutely right. This request for a 20% decrease in the amount of gear will put those on. Whatever your gender, blasting tons of gear will put those on the. It's ridiculous that we are being pushed out and the. Meow. Do you want to be picked up or not, girl? you weirdo. Maybe that's why I love you so much.